This is The Law Show on CL 650. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to The Law Show here on CIL 650. I'm Sterling Fox, joined in studio by Rudy Kischer and Alex Stojicevic from Maynard, Kischer, Stojicevic, immigration and citizenship lawyers here in Vancouver and on your computer at vancouverlaw.ca. We're talking, among other things, about all the changes that face, bureaucrats. The bureaucracy has new political masters in many areas, and they're not really going to do much for the first year. As Rudy and Alex have both said, the wheels of government move painfully slowly, and no matter what has been promised, nothing's going to happen overnight. Among other things, we've discussed the case of this young man from the Philippines who's working at a hotel here in Vancouver. He's been in the hospitality industry. He was in Saudi Arabia for a few years. Now he's here in Canada. He's got a little 2-year-old kid in the Philippines he wants to bring to Canada, so he wants to become a Canadian permanent resident, eventually a citizen, and bring his little boy over here. My question to you simply was, how likely is that dream to be realized? And if he even stands a remote chance, what does he have to do?
I think the one, looking at this guy, amazing Mike here, is the problem with his position is in the world of immigration, jobs are divided between what we call skilled and semi-skilled.
Right.
He's in a semi-skilled position. So
right.
the hope, when people immigrate under the semi-skilled position, end up working in Canada in the semi-skilled, there's always the potential that they will move to what we call a skilled position. So now he's working at the hospitality industry. He's a houseman. He's driving a shuttle. That will not generally, on the current system, allow him to immigrate under the federal program. There is hope there, though, that if he was to be elevated to a job where he was a supervisor.
Right, okay.
Right? So if he was running the staff, the cleaning staff, et cetera, and supervising, let's say, 10 people, or supervising the other drivers, et cetera, and not doing the driving himself, that he would qualify then for a new work permit, right? So if that was the position he was going to be promoted to, the employer would then have to show, we can't find somebody to do this. It'd be paying more. Mike would have to probably need a raise, right?
Sure.
And increased responsibilities. And then he might qualify for a new work permit and then eventually to immigrate under the federal program. That's a lot of hoops and a lot of changes in Mike's life and his position and for the company. And they may say, we've got supervisors. We don't need a supervisor.
Right.
What we need is a houseman, and that's what he's doing, and a shuttle driver. And we really, we can find Canadians to do that other job, but we can't find Canadians to do this job. So it's a difficult transition. Now, the provincial program used to allow for this. It will reopen, and they've said that they will have a hospitality component for it. But I don't know. My guess it's going to be a very scaled back version.
And Alex, for a guy like this, and I'll let you jump in on Rudy's point in a second, but for a young guy like this who's in a bit of a pickle, he's pretty focused. He knows what he wants to do, but he has very little to offer. He's going to need some legal advice here along the way. How does this guy help himself the best?
There's a number of things that can be done. First, he needs to talk to his employer and say, here is the situation. He needs to understand what his situation actually is.
He's a temporary foreign worker.
What programs are available to him?
Right.
How long can he handle this process? How long does he have a right to stay in Canada? The 4-year rule. He needs to inform himself about what he's achieved to date, and what his prospects in the immediate moment are, and what he needs out of his employer. Then the employer has to, be brought into the picture, and the employer needs to understand where they stand in this. Part of the provincial nomination point is that the provinces and the feds have an agreement on the number of people that the province can choose.
Yes.
Now, once you're in that agreement, then you have competing industries. Rudy alluded to this, but when you have, on the one hand, you have LNG, you have mining, you have tech, you have various other industries who are saying, hey, we need to have the ability to bring in specialized foreign workers for ourselves.
Sure.
And you have new pressures in the last few years that you didn't have before. You have the promise, the lower dollar and the promise of easier rules having attracted everybody from Amazon to Google to Disney Studios, everybody coming into Vancouver.
Right.
But you also have tourism and the hospitality industry who are big supporters of the current provincial government and who have, taken the position that, we have to keep our cost base reasonable to compete and bring in those tourists and service them. So we need you to help us. How does the province deals with those competing interests when everybody thinks that their industry is more important than everyone else's?
Of course.
That's a challenge.
Right.
That's a challenge. I mean, and the reality is not everyone is going to do well out of this. They simply can't make every industry a priority on the wage issue. At some point, wages are going to have to be supported either through more training of Canadians or something else. Now, this fellow is presumably from where we can see here from the west coast of Vancouver Island.
Right.
That's a harder region to service with employees than others.
Oh, so there might be a geographical consideration.
So there would be a geographical consideration, and I mean that has played a role in the way we've looked at provincial nomination, as well as the way we've processed labor market impact assessments on a federal level. But these are some of the competing challenges. You can't have everybody have the door open wide for everyone at all times. And this is where you have some challenges from the policy perspective.
I think what the province has run up against, which they've never run up before, is they're hitting their target. So every year they have a target, let's say, of 5,000.
Maxed out.
And, up until this year, actually, they'd sort of, a month or two before they'd hit their target of 5,000, they'd be a couple hundred over, and they'd be, okay, we start the program again, we'll take applications. Well, this year, their program filled up sort of like in the first 4 months of the year. And so now they've gone to they went to the feds, and the feds said, sorry, you're not getting any more.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And that's the first time that's ever happened. The feds have always been happy to sort of increase the numbers and give them a little bit more. And that's done. So now they're stuck with 5,000, at this 5,000
They're stuck
number.
with this year. And I mean, to take Rudy's point a bit further, I think part of the issue is when they hit their target, we had an election campaign, a 77-day election or 78-day election campaign.
Right.
So nobody was prepared to renegotiate provincial-federal agreements because, as the province will tell you, and my conversations with them have been along the lines of there was nobody to say yes or no to us.
Exactly, right.
Now that a new government is being formed, I mean, I think there's a hope that these things can be renegotiated and levels can be changed.
And
if they need to.
what also has happened is, if you take a look at, as you alluded to earlier, was the 4-year mark. This is something that was brought in by the Conservative government, right? And what happened is we're now meeting this 4-year mark. When I say that, people can only work in Canada under certain skill levels, this being one of them, for 4 years. So in the past, they just keep renewing the guy's work permit.
Exactly. Yeah.
You'll immigrate eventually.
But now
Don't
your
worry.
4 years are up. See ya.
You got to go home. So now the employer's got to deal with it. He'd always push. We'll find a way for you. We'll deal with you later. Trust me. You'll become a supervisor. Eventually, be able to immigrate. He had that promise. Now it's like, listen, my 4 years is up. What am I going to do?
Need to take a break. Just before we take the break, from both of you, yes or no, is the government, any government, likely to suspend the 4-year temporary worker program? Is there a possibility this will go away?
I don't think so.
As being a bad idea?
I don't think so.
I don't see it.
I don't see it going away. I don't like it personally. I was shocked when they put it in, but I don't think
now that it's in, it's going to stick around.
Yeah.
This is The Law Show on CIL 650. Stay with us. There's more to come.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CIL 650.